Hello, this is the TradeSite U.S. Stocks and Futures Market Preview and Domestic Economic Data Roadmap for the week beginning Monday the 17th of April, ending Friday the 21st. So, a bunch of things colliding here. Tax day is often a turning point in the markets. Not really sure how you turn off of a market that's basically been so flat. Here's a look at the ES front month futures contract. This is the daily chart of the broad market in futures form. If you take out 4 or 5 days in a row that account for an 80 point, 70 point move in the beginning of February, we've really been flat since the beginning of December. Um, it's not exciting, obviously, fairly flat markets. We had a good week this week, but you're having to really fight for it. And volume was really off this week. You'll see that in a minute. So what happens is Easter's an awkward one around the world. You got Easter Sunday here on the 16th. U.S. stock market was closed Friday on the 14th for Good Friday, but the banks were not. And so that slows down the world. And then on Monday, everybody else is closed globally, banks and markets, except for the U.S., which is open, banks and markets. So it's still going to be a dead day for everybody on Monday, but it's just a weird setup. On top of it, Monday, even though tax day is April 15th, that's Saturday. Monday is the official day that you got to file your taxes. So Monday is going to be a mess and probably very light on volume, lighter than what we saw this week. It's essentially a holiday. Here's a look. So the futures have shown nothing new. Let's go through the major indices. Then we'll look at the intra-week action, and then we'll just get back to looking at what's coming out this week. So crude oil up 7 cents, 53.17. Gold up another 10 points, 10.5 points to 1288.70. That's the highest since back in October almost. S&P cash down 16 points. Now, if this breaks that 2320 area, that's not a pretty pattern. We're establishing a downtrend, even though we've been fairly flat. And what really goes along with that here is the NASDAQ 100. Here's the NASDAQ, which was down 23 on Friday, but it had a 13 sell signal about 3 weeks ago, and that's been the high so far. The risk line of that worked perfectly, the pink line that you see there. The red dash line, the static trend line at 51.50 or so is the current target of that move, potential downside target. That's 200 points lower, so just be aware of that. We've got the stocks down 6. Got the biotechs up 23, the 13 sell signal working perfectly there. Both of the 13s that you see on this chart, look how well the one worked back in September, all the way down to the November lows. That's a big correction, 20% off that signal. VIX closing up 19 cents to 15.96. We've got the trend at 2.42, super high reading on Thursday. Friday was closed for the trend, taking the 10-day moving average up to 1.44, the highest it has been since late September. And if you line that up in late September, you don't get much. Okay, but it's still a very high average on the trend. NASDAQ volume on Thursday, the lightest day of the year so far, 1.45 billion, and the lightest week of the year, 1.6 on Wednesday, but every other day was way down under 1.5 on Monday, Wednesday. That was Tuesday. Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, really light. So it's the lightest week of the year. Thursday's not a surprise because we were going into a 3-day weekend, but it's just a really light week. Advanced decline ratio on the NASDAQ, negative 1,072. That's bad. And negative 1266 on the New York. That's also bad. Google loses a $1.28, which is basically a blip from Google, but that 13 sell signal back a month ago is obviously right on it. Apple down 75 cents. Again, I want to point out this one had a 13 sell signal back around the same time. One thing to keep in mind with Apple, though, is the sell signal is one thing, but as we pointed out, Apple is one of the biggest gaining tech stocks for the first quarter. It's not a stock they're going to sell. None of the big boys want to be out of that stock for statement prints. They want to show as much of it on the books as possible and get their biggest payout. So Apple shaking off that 13 until the end of the quarter, end of the month made sense. That's the high. It's been down ever since. Amazon down 11.5 points. Netflix down 91 cents. 13 sell signal perfect there. Tesla up 7. Near highs still. By the way, there was a 13 sell signal on this one back in February that caused a 40-point sell-off. TLT up 38 cents. That's the 20-year bond ETF. So bonds are now at highs. This is the highest close in bonds since the day after the election. Goldman Sachs down 243. That's an ugly chart. That thing breaks 220. Look out. The Dow Jones back down to 453. And here's another one breaking 20,400 here. And we've got that static trend line in play back to 20 or so. And, you get back to 20 and just under it, that takes you back to, erasing a lot of the gain that we've had here. Look how flat we were back in December and January on the Dow. Give all that back, that gain. There's a lot of volume in the market until this last week for this year. So all the people that are in it would be trapped if you break back under 20, especially under 19.6. That's all that volume, almost most of the volume since almost the election would be trapped in the market up higher. And remember, just to widen this out, we had a 13 buy signal 2 days before the election on the Dow that was right on the money. All right, so let's take a look at the intra week action just to see what the markets did. And I got to slide it back a little bit here so that that's the end of Friday last week. You can see on the far left. Monday, a slight gap up, pushed higher, rolled over, filled the gap, bounced again, closed about even. Tuesday, a tiny gap down. That gap never filled the rest of the week. We went lower, came back, and closed down a point or two. Wednesday, a gap down. That also didn't fill, almost, but not quite, and closed down just a little bit. Remember, Wednesday was light on the volume. And then Thursday, another light volume day. Gap down, filled that gap, went lower, dropped at the close when nobody was around. NASDAQ side, not much different, although it looks more like an inverted cup and handle or inverted cup formation base that broke down late in the day in the last 30 minutes on Thursday. And again, we're closed Friday. So nothing looks pretty. I mean, I would say there's nothing on these charts that looks bullish. Obviously, I feel like you're going to be making more money on the short side with us this week. Monday may or may not be exciting because it's effectively a holiday around the world, so nobody's going to be around trading. But we'll mostly call that one from the tape if anything happens. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, on top of the weird holiday scenario, but the market looking ugly, we're entering core earnings season. If you take a look at this, this is the Yahoo Finance. This is their new way of doing the economic calendar. Let's go through the economic calendar first, then we'll look at the data. So on Tuesday, we've got Empire Manufacturing at 8:30 a.m., Housing Market Index at 10, and net long-term tick flows at 4. On Tuesday, we've got housing starts and building permits at 8:30, capacity utilization, industrial production at 9:15. On Wednesday, this is what I don't like about the way they're doing this calendar now. It's slow. MBA mortgage applications, then crude oil inventories, Fed beige book. On Thursday, economic events include initial claims and continuing claims in the Philly Fed an hour before the bell, leading indicators 30 minutes in, and the weekly natty gas number an hour in. On Friday, existing home sales. Now look at this. The key here being amount of earnings. So the stocks releasing earnings, Mondays are not much, but Tuesdays 279, Wednesdays 210, and Thursday 369. That's a lot more than you saw in the prior week. So we're entering the core 8 days of earnings starting on Tuesday. Markets do trade a little different. You get a lot more rumor movement and then gaps on the earnings and gaps on the calls that they do. Maybe Tuesday won't be super exciting as they want some of these earnings to come out so they can start to see what these companies are saying for the quarter moving forward. And then the week after, just to give you a preview, if I jump ahead 1 week, look at the earnings there. Tuesday, 823 stocks, 1,211 on Wednesday, 1,264 on Thursday. That's why it's core earnings. Your average day around this, not in this time period, maybe 50 stocks releasing. So this is core earnings season. Plus this week is options expiration on Friday, which means Wednesday or Thursday would be any options unraveling move if there is one to have. In the middle of core earnings after a holiday, who knows? We'll see what we get, but we'll be aware of all those factors and guiding you through. Charts, as usual, brought to you by eSignal. If you've not yet taken a trial of our services, feel free to do so. We will help you out for a couple weeks. Have a great and profitable trading week.